Interestingly, that is also a 5-judge constitutional bench, and that too, incidentally, Pranesh, is headed by the Chief Justice himself. This is the Sena versus Sena verdict. Remember, there are 6 different petitions which are going to be clubbed, which have been clubbed and being heard by the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice of India himself is heading it, and the significance of that is going to be massive, because this is regarding a plea of the disqualification of the sitting Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, and also those whom he had disqualified, those who were in Uddhav Sena's camp. So this is essentially a Shinde versus Uddhav drama, which is now going to be played out legally as well.
And to put it simply, Meghna, this is you have a situation where the Chief Minister's job is at stake. Siddharth Talia, let's start with you. Put the case in context.
Well, there's a lot of information here, Pranesh, that needs to be unpacked because there are several issues that the Supreme Court is examining in this matter. One, of course, is the fact as to whether or not the invitation on the part of the governor, Mr. Bhagat Singh Koshyari, to Eknath Shinde to form a government was actually legal, given the fact that he was ultimately accused of being interfering in what was a disagreement within a party. Because Eknath Shinde had not quit the Shiv Sena, he claimed that he was part of the true Shiv Sena, and so were his followers. So in the absence of a party split, in the absence of a defection, could the governor have invited a claimant to the Chief Minister's post to come and form the government, and could he, under such circumstances, have ordered a floor test? The next question that the Supreme Court is also examining is that could all this have been done when the disqualification proceedings against the 16 members of the Eknath Shinde faction were still ongoing, were still within the remit of the then Speaker, Narhari Zirwar, who belonged to the Nationalist Congress Party. He was the Deputy Speaker at the time. So could all this have happened when the disqualification proceedings had not been adjudicated on by the Speaker? So therefore, that's the other question that needs to be decided by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, during the course of its oral observations, also said, Pranesh, that this is an extremely complicated issue and that it's actually made life difficult for the Supreme Court because it's actually not in a position to reinstate an earlier government. That's beyond the remit of the court at this particular stage. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of observations it actually makes in the final written verdict as well. And ultimately, the other thing that the Supreme Court raised during the course of its oral observations was that in the absence of a formal split within the party and in the absence of a floor test, why did Uddhav Thackeray, the then Chief Minister, actually submit his resignation and demit office? If there was no formal split within the party, if there was no floor test that had taken place, then why did he submit his resignation as Chief Minister? Because that's only served to complicate matters. So several issues that need to be decided by the Supreme Court, and all parties concerned will be keeping a very close eye.
Close eye they will have to keep, Meghna, because if this verdict favors Uddhav Thackeray, many believe the Chief Minister will have to resign. But having said that, the Shinde camp and the BJP claim they have the numbers. Mr. Rajagopalan now joining us, Aditya Pratap also with us. Mr. Rajagopalan, in case the Chief Minister has to resign, if the Supreme Court decides to disqualify the 16 rebels, is the government safe there in Maharashtra?
It is very safe. It is very safe because they have numbers and the Chief Minister can be re-elected. The reason being, Uddhav Thackeray was not MLA or MLC when he sworn in. 6 months later, he got MLC. Therefore, Mr. Eknath Shinde can continue, but he has to take another time oath of office. That is the drill. My understanding, apart from that, Pranesh, things are very, very, very dicey for Uddhav Thackeray. That is what politically I can say, because just now Ajit Pawar has said the government is very safe. Eknath Shinde government is safe. That means NCP is going to lend a handle and Maharashtra Sakadi will split. That is going to be the political impact of legal judgment.
Across to Varun Singh also, who's joining us, lawyer. And Varun Singh, it's very important for us to understand, because although there are many people who are saying this may lead to the entire government coming down, the Supreme Court cannot order sitting Chief Minister to be disqualified at any base. So what really is the possible scenarios that we are looking at right now, given that the Supreme Court has already said that Uddhav Thackeray, having resigned and stepped down by himself, not going in for a trust vote before he came to the Supreme Court itself means that there is just so much that the court can intervene at this stage and do.
One thing, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a law student and I'm a journalist and I analyze politics. The question that you asked is very pertinent. The Supreme Court doesn't have the authority to disqualify MLAs. It is the prerogative of the Speaker of the House to disqualify MLAs, and only a Speaker can disqualify. The Supreme Court here can only say that we are sending, this is our strictures, it can pass strictures and can ask the Speaker to act on those within a specific timeline, or it may not even give a timeline. And we need to remember the Maharashtra Assembly today has a new Speaker. His name is Mr. Rahul Narvekar. He was an ex-Sena, ex-NCP, and today he is a BJP MLA from South Mumbai. And he will take the decision that will be about disqualification or not disqualification. And to be honest, the governor, there are many people who are trying to say that the governor acted hastily. But if you see retrospectively, the governor acted very wisely. He asked Uddhav Thackeray to prove his majority on the floor of the House. Uddhav Thackeray immediately resigned, and he knew that the government didn't have majority. That is the reason why the government had to act. And one very important question. Eknath Shinde is the legislative party leader of Sena. Even when he went and met the governor, he was the legislative party leader of the Sena party. His disqualification as the legislative party leader and MLA was challenged in the court, there was no verdict on it. So that means there was a status quo at that time, and Eknath Shinde remained as the legislative party leader, and the governor didn't meet a Tom, Dick and Harry. The governor met the legislative party leader of Sena, who said that we are changing alliance from MVA to the BJP, and that is the reason why they could go ahead with the BJP alliance at that point of time. And you're talking about number, just one small thing about the number, even if this got forsaken, even if the Supreme Court says that 16 MLAs have to be disqualified, sends it to the Speaker, Speaker disqualifies them, still 288 is reduced by 16. It will be the numbers that the BJP and the Sena has. They wouldn't need an NCP at that point of time to save the government. They have sufficient numbers because remember, Eknath Shinde came with more than 40 MLAs and another 10 to 12 independents. They are still intact. They will still be with
That's right. Varun Singh, if I'm not wrong, the number, and Shivani now joining us for more on this. Shivani, the number that people are talking about, that number is 164. And even if you take away the 16, the government has a comfortable majority. Shivani.
Well, till we wait for Shivani to be connected, the big breaking news which is coming in is that at 11:30 we expect the pronouncements of the two judgments to come out. The first one will be the Delhi government versus the Lieutenant Governor. The second is going to be the Sena versus Sena. So let me go back across to Shivani. Go ahead.
Well, talking about today's scenario, then definitely we are all awaiting Supreme Court's verdict to be passed. But here in Maharashtra, at the moment of time, all eyes are on Eknath Shinde's chair as a chief minister. There are opposition of Mahavikas Aghadi, which is saying clearly that the chief Minister of Maharashtra will have to come down from his chair, whereas legally, if we talk about this particular scenario that is there in Maharashtra, then even if Eknath Shinde gets disqualified along with other 15 MLAs in the state, he can still continue to be on the chair of a chief minister for at least 6 months of time. We have earlier also seen that the very recent example is of Uddhav Thackeray, that he was also one of the chief minister who became chief minister first, later he was elected as MLC. The same can be done with Eknath Shinde, but the question remains to be seen. If he gets disqualified, he can continue as the chief minister of Maharashtra for 6 months, but whether he can fight an election not being an MLA is something that is going to be an interesting part to see, because as of now Eknath Shinde, Devendra, Fadnavis, all of the top leaders in Maharashtra have avoided media to give any statement. They have all left Mumbai, somewhere are about to leave Mumbai. They are also right now saying that they are waiting only for the verdict to come finally. Before that they won't be making any statement. that it is very critical at the moment. Whereas on one hand, Uddhav Thackeray faction clearly says that legally the battle is on their side. Whereas we also heard Devendra Fadnavis stating clearly that their case is more stronger and they will be fighting all the elections ahead under the leadership of Eknath Shinde only. But yes, of course, the majority, the number of seats are in the favor of BJP and Eknath Shinde-led Shiv Sena. Henceforth, the government falling is something that can't be seen in near future, but it is going to be a matter to see exactly if Eknath Shinde gets disqualified, whether he will resign or he will choose to continue on the position for next 6 months and later fight election in future.
And that's going to be very interesting to watch out for. But let me go across to Aditya Pratap also, who's joining us, a lawyer for sure this time. Well, Aditya, one of the petitions which is going to be heard is about the validity of the governor's decision to ask Uddhav to face a floor test. Now, this is one of the pleas by the Uddhav camp, of course. And that's going to be very significant, isn't it? Even in future, to down the protocols for the manner in which a government in a situation like this, a governor in a situation like this, should act.
Yes, certainly, because there is one school of thought which says that the discretion of the governor is absolute and that the governor in his satisfaction can order a floor test. Now, the point is simple, that can there be any restrictions of holding a floor test? The point is that, government holds its power, it holds its position so long as it has the confidence of the legislature. And wherever the governor has any apprehensions that the government does not enjoy the confidence of the legislature, he can order the government to take a floor test. Because the point is, can there be any stay on the governor ordering a floor test? That is one important thing, and I feel the Supreme Court judgment will be decisive here. I'll hit the nail on the head. A lot of people are saying that this was a managed defection. There were work behind the scenes. There was probably some money at play, whatever. The point is, have we forgotten the 1994 GMM bribery case, where the Supreme Court had held that nothing can come in way of, no matter whatever his motivations or considerations, or MLA or MP is free to cast any vote in the floor of the House, and he cannot be taken to task or held accountable for that. So I do believe that if the Supreme Court set the law in stone there, but the same, what I feel is that the governor, the essence of democracy is government should enjoy the confidence of the legislature at any given point of time. And I have utmost respect for Mr. Uddhav Thackeray. But the trouble is when you cannot keep your house in order, like when you cannot hold your flock together. Today you have the bulk of the party breaking up and calling itself the Shiv Sena. So that way they have bypassed the requirement of merging with a larger party. And the Election Commission passed an order saying that the Eknath Shinde faction is a real Shiv Sena. And here another issue comes in, that party is not a dynasty. So the point is, yes, no side is clean, no side is bathed in milk, but the point is the court has to read the letter of the law and also at the same time uphold the tenets of parliamentary democracy.
Now, on a matter of principle, Siddharth, so much was talked about the Nabam 2016, if I'm not wrong with the year, the 2016 Nabam Rabia case in the Supreme Court.
In the proceedings in the Supreme Court, and that of course pertained not just to the fact that disqualification in this particular instance, at a time when a notice of disqualification is actually pending, can the governor actually proceed to do what he did? So that particular jurisdiction and that specific aspect of law as to whether or not, when a particular matter is well within the remit of the speaker, is actually being interfered with, and the governor then proceeds to order a floor test without actually taking into cognizance the parallel legislative assembly proceedings that are taking place. That is something that was brought on not just by Harish Salve, but also the other side being represented by Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi as well. What is also interesting here, Pranesh, and that is something that you also brought up earlier, is the fact that the Supreme Court does not really have the jurisdiction to adjudicate over disqualification when it comes to MLAs. That is purely within the remit of the Speaker. In fact, this was something that was even alluded to during the oral observations made by the judges hearing this particular matter. So what one might actually expect is whether or not the current speaker, Mr. Rahul Narvekar, who belongs to the BJP, is actually called upon by the Supreme Court to examine the issue of disqualification and the ultimate decision left to him, whatever it might be, given the fact that the Supreme Court, many believe, would be exceeding its remit in the event that it actually entered